So hello guys, today we are going to talk about reverb. So what is reverb? It's an effect that when sound reflects off surfaces in a space, it's creating a sense of environment and atmosphere. So in a simpler explanation would be, it's just when a sound bounces off walls and other surfaces. Like imagine you are in a big room and you clap your hands, you will hear an echo that makes the room sound bigger. It's also what makes a singer's voice sound like they're in a tiny room or in a huge concert hall. So if they're standing in a concert hall, you will hear it because of the echo of the basically. And if they're standing in the bathroom or in a small room, you will also hear it because of it. So that's how we can even differentiate between those. So yeah, there are different types of reverbs. I mean, there are hall reverbs, room reverbs, plate reverbs, spring reverbs, convolution reverbs. These are all different kinds of reverbs. I will make a in-depth video about those types of reverbs in the future, but today we are going to learn what every knob does. So yeah, I will use the vintage verb. There is also the fruity reverb, so I can explain it here better for you guys because it's bigger. And yeah, so yeah, the first knob we have is the mix knob, and that's also in different kind of effects, not only in the reverb, but it's basically how much you are allowing the dry signal and how much you are allowing the wet signal to. So if we have 50%, it's 50% of the dry signal and 50% of the wet signal mixed together. If we have 100% mix, that would mean that we have 100% of the wet signal. If we have 0%, that would mean that we have 0% of the wet signal and 100% of the dry signal. So I will put it on 100% right now so you can hear the difference. So we are only playing back this wet signal right now. So I have here a hi-hat loop, like this. So now it's very, very dry. Now I'll activate the reverb and I'm going to show you the rest of the knobs. So the pre-delay. The pre-delay is basically how much it takes the reverb. So it's basically how long you're allowing the reverb So the pre-delay is basically how much it takes before the reverb, you are going to be able to hear the reverb. So if it's 20 milliseconds, it's going to take 20 milliseconds before the reverb is here basically. So if we increase it, it will come after 230 milliseconds after we heard the dry signal. So if we put it on 50% mix, you will hear the dry signal first, and after 230 milliseconds, you will hear the reverb. Yeah. So first there is the dry signal, and then after, I can increase it. So yeah, as you can hear, it takes about 500 milliseconds before the wet signal, so the reverb signal is here. So yeah, now we can put it on 20 because that's a standard. Yeah, the decay is basically how long the reverb is going to be here after it came. So if it's 4 seconds and we have 20 milliseconds pre-delay, that it would mean that we have the dry signal. After 20 milliseconds, the reverb is going to be here, and it will stay for 4 seconds in this case, like this. So if we increase this, and I will deactivate this for a second, you can hear. Now we have a pretty long pre-delay. So it came after 290 milliseconds, and it's going to stay for 4 seconds. Let's hear it. So yeah, I'm exaggerating all of those settings right now so you can hear it better, what they are doing. Of course, normally it's not, the pre-delay is not really that high. I mean, you can use it if you want to. There are no limits in this, but especially in music. But yeah, the decay, yeah, as I said before. So you can also set it to very low like this. And for example, if I activate this again, we can hear very short reverb, and it's pretty nice for the ears. So if we deactivate it, so yeah, the next setting would be the high frequency damping. I mean, the whole section is called damping, but the high frequency, it's basically, so it's still the decay, but only of the high frequencies. So yeah, we can adjust the frequency where it's going to be. And here it's the same, but with the low frequencies. This one scales the reverb decay time for bass frequencies. So it's basically when we have 1 second here and you want to scale the bass frequencies, I mean the decay time of the bass frequencies, we have 1.5 times here. So that would mean that we have 1.5 seconds for the bass frequencies, the decay time of the bass frequencies. So yeah. And this is the high shelf, is basically the damping of the filter, because I mean those two are here because in nature the high frequencies are the first frequencies that are going to die essentially, so you won't hear them in the reverb. So it's not very so it's unnatural if you hear a reverb that has a lot of high frequencies, because in nature these are the first frequencies that are going to die, because yeah, that's how it is. So the next section is the shape section. So here you can adjust the size of the reverb. So it's basically, if we have it like this on only wet, it's basically much smaller, the overall sound of the reverb, and now it's much bigger. So yeah, that's also pretty nice. The attack controls the initial attack of the reverb decay. So this would mean if we have it like this, so you can hear it better again, and we put it on very low, that would mean that we have a very hard attack. And if we put it on 100%, that would mean that the sound of the reverb is more like smooth. Yeah, as you can hear. Now it's pretty hard and sharp. And now it's pretty soft. Yeah. So the next thing are the diffusion. Yeah, so we have the here we have the early diffusion and the late diffusion. It's basically the diffusion is the density of the echo. So this would mean how many voices are, yeah, basically bouncing off. So we can test this. And let's put this on the. So here you can hear the early diffusion, so the early density of the echo is pretty small, and that's why you hear the distinct echoes. And if we put it up, there are so many that we hear it as kind of one but very big one, but there are actually a lot of them. So a lot of voices, as you can, and that's the same but for the late diffusion. So as you can hear, now we hear the separate voices of those echoes, because there are not many of them, and now we have a lot. So it's basically, you can experiment with that. You will hardly ever use it, but they are here, so that's nice. So here we have the modulation. Yeah, so here we have the rate, and here we have the depth. So this basically, the depth controls how much of the modulation, or how hard the modulation is within the reverb, and this is the hertz, so how fast, because modulation is essentially, we are modulating the pitch of the reverb. So if this is very low and this very high, it's a very slow modulation, but you will hear it. Yeah, we are basically modulating the pitch, as I said, and that's the rate is how fast it's going to get modulated. And the depth is, I mean, you will have to hear it to understand it better, but it's, I mean, like I said, the explanation is that the modulation, you're modulating the pitch of the reverb, and I mean, like I said, you can experiment with it. I hardly ever use it, but these are not really settings that you will use often, but it's cool to have and understand, of course. Yeah. So the next one is the EQ. So here we have a high cut and a low cut. So we already know what those are if you saw my guide to EQs. So a high cut is basically cutting the high frequencies, so it will be normal, because like I said, in nature, the high frequencies of a reverb are not here for long, and they are the first that are dying. So yeah, you can hear, yeah, we are essentially putting out all of those high frequencies, and now it's pretty bright, and now it's pretty dark. And that's the same, but for low frequencies, so it's a low cut. So I can, this is actually something that I'm using quite a lot, because I don't want to have a lot of low frequencies in my reverb, because it's just will clash with my low instruments, and that's making the mix pretty muddy. So yeah, that's a pretty useful knob right here. Here we have the presets. Here we have the color. I mean, the color is just, yeah, so it looks differently. And then we have here the modes. So yeah, like I said, there are different modes of reverbs. Here you have a lot of them. I mean, some of them are just like different type. For example, we have a concert hall, and we have also a bright hall, but it's a hall reverb. And here we have a plate, and here we have a smooth plate. So it's still a plate reverb, but a little bit different. So, and if we adjust this, it's going to sound a little bit different every time. Yeah, here we have a bright hall. Here we have a smooth random, plate, bright hall, and yeah, and so on. So yeah, that was it, guys. If you like this guide and want to learn more about reverb and reverb plugins and how they work, some tricks and tips, check out my in-depth check out my in-depth ebook. I will link it in the description if you want. That would be amazing if you check it out. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.